Discuss about learning. We should have the base in English.
Morning.
Morning. Yeshua for Surfside. It's supposed for Shleima for Chel Nasim. Sorry. Okay, let's start Pei Amud Aleph. Actually, similar Lugma. It's towards the bottom of Pei Amud Aleph. 80A. It says like this. You're not allowed to eat or drink in Yom Kippur. So how much eating is considered eating? How much drinking is considered drinking? So we spoke about the eating yesterday. Now it says, Ashay Lugma. Someone drinks the amount of his cheekfuls. Sounds like a plural, right? Malay Lugma instead of Lugmai. It sounds like a plural. Amr Rav Yehuda Mishmol, Lay Malay Lugma Mamish. It's not actually both cheeks. You squish it all into one side. I guess you puff up one side, and if one side of if you look from one side, it looks like he has both cheeks full. On one side, you can only see one. So then that's considered already a shir. It's a chumrah that you're drinking less and you're chayav. This is a statement from Rabbi Yehuda Mishmol. Mar says 1 second. But we said that it needs to be both cheekfuls. Like, okay, we answered it. Meistri, the Gemara's a question come used to be chayav. How much drinking will be chayav? Bishamayim is machlekes. Bishamayim and revius. That's the regular measurement, like a kiddush cup, or revius. That's the opinion of Bishamay. Bisil amr malay lugma. Bisil says the cheekful, rather cheeks full. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Mishum Rabbi Eliezer Kimalay Lugma. Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Rabbi Eliezer like Kimalay Lugma. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Aimer Kadei Gemiya. The amount that you could swallow. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Yeah. What's our question? Question is, according to Beis Hillel, that's probably the opinion that we would follow. It says Malay Lugmav. It says both cheeks, both cheekfuls. So the Gemara says, "Mi adifa mi masnisin." Are you asking a better question than you just asked on our Mishnah? And how did we resolve the question on the Mishnah? Do kimna kadesh yira? It says that it appears to be a cheeks full, even though it's only one. Hachanami kadesh yira. Here also in the Brisa you can answer it the same way. Say that it appears to be cheeks full, even though it's just one. The Gemara says, "Yochi and Rabbi Eliezer." No, it's the problem in the Brisa because we had another opinion that said if it appears to be cheeks full, so then that's going to be the shir. So it can't be the same because if there's machlekes, it can't be saying the same thing. You can't say the same opinion twice. So it could be naya malay lugma v'dacha. You could say the difference is if it's a bare minimal of this cheekful. That according to Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, even if it's a bare minimal cheekful, it's already chayav. And Basil says no, it has to be a full cheekful, one full cheekful. Maskevla Rabbi Shia. Rabbi has a question. We just mentioned the machlekes between Beishamai and Basil and some others, but Beishamai and Basil as well, where Beishamai says that how much drinking, how much liquid on Yom Kippur would make a person chayav, that if he drinks a revius, that's a large measurement. Basil says a smaller measurement, the malay lugmav, which is not really lugmav, it's really malay lugmai. If that's the case, then Beishamai is more lenient. Now we have a Masechta Idiyos. Over there it has a list of all the cases that Beishamai is more lenient in. Yeah. So, why don't you put it in the list and not the Masechta? And here we have another example. Amalei, we get quite an interesting answer. The original question was if Oig Melech HaBashan was not Jewish, but if he was Jewish, and he's a big giant, the giant, I don't know, in the secular world, whatever. In the Jewish world, you want to see a giant, you say Oig. So, if he would take a sip on Yom Kippur, when would he be chayav? Malay lookum of a cheekful. Wow, a cheekful would be like a barrel. So comes along Beis Shammai and says, no, only a Revi'ah seed already be chayav. See, so Beis Shammai is more strict. So the Havalei Beis Shammai lechumra. Maskefla Reb Zera. Reb Zera is a question, not on the answer, just a question on. I mean, you brought this up that there's going to be differences between people that King of Bashan has a huge share. So what's going on over here? We never do this. Usually you have a share, that's a kiddush cup. You have a different size kiddush cup for a little guy, different size kiddush cup for a big guy. I mean, you could do that, but the share is a revius. Now here, on Yom Kippur, we don't say that. For drinking, we say the share is every individual's cheekful. When it comes to eating on Yom Kippur, we said it's the size of a date, a large date. So why for food is it a set measurement? We don't care about the person's size. And by drink, the person's size makes a difference. Amalei Abaya says to Reb Zera, Ba'achila, I'm adding in that word from the Bach, Kimle Rabbanan, B'kekesebes the B'achim Yasvedaita. Our sages understood that a date relaxes a person's mind from his hunger. And Batzer Mihafi, if it's less than a date, it won't satisfy him. It won't relax his hunger. When it comes to drinking, that his own measurement works. Our sages understood that this is how it works. In other words, we're not looking for a measurement of achila, a measurement of shtia. We're looking for.
So he's saying that.
Yeah, the Gemara's going to ask that in a moment. But we're saying is that we're not looking for a measurement of achila or shtia. We're looking for a measurement of what would relax the person from his hunger, and his own cheekful would relax him from his hunger. And a kesevus, a date, would relax a person from his hunger. Now, a date is equal for everyone. In drink, it has to be what a person could fit into his cheek. Maskefla Reb Zera asks the question. I should mention this. Yeah, they joked about this guy that he ate like a huge breakfast, a loaf of bread with a dozen eggs. And I asked him, this is not. He says, "What do you mean? I eat like a bird." I said, "What?" I said, "Well, a bird eats until it's full, and I eat until I'm full." So, Gemara is asking here. Oig Melech Habashan, this big guy. You say that he's going to be satisfied with the date. The whole world is satisfied with the date. Everyone is. That makes them relaxes them from hunger. They're not afflicted anymore. And Oig Melech Habashan is this big giant. That's going to be enough for him. Amalei Abaya responds to Reb Zera. Kimlu Rabbanan the B'achim Yasvedaita. Yeah. It has to do with the amount of blood that's necessary for life inside a person is always equal. I think it says Revi'ah Stam or something. Now, so what gives a person his life is a basic amount for everyone. Now, let's finish this Gemara. The B'achim Yasvedaita, Batzim Efelim Yasvedaita, Miu Kuli Al Matuva, Ba'igmal Chabashim Porta. Now, the truth is that this is what the Gemara is saying is that there's a threshold. Once you pass the threshold, you ate the size of a date, then you have Yishuv Adas. Your mind gets relaxed. How much does your mind get relaxed? Well, for Oig, not a lot, but it's a little, but it's something. And for everyone else, it's a lot because you have the date. So, but less than a date doesn't do anything for anyone. That's the idea. The idea is that the date is the threshold. Once you pass the threshold, then it covers all. Once you pass the threshold, then it's Yishuv Adas. And before that, then there's nothing now. How much Yishuv Adas? So for Oig Melech HaBashan, it's just a little bit. And for everyone else, it's satisfying. Maskevler Reb Zera. Reb Zera is a question. You didn't tell me what you're eating. Eating rice cakes or you're eating steak? So Basar Shaman B'Kukisebes, Velulve Gefanim B'Kukisebes. You're talking about Yishuv Adas, what's going to satisfy a person. So if you have fatty meat, the size of a date, okay, you're going to say that that's going to be the same thing with Velulve Gefanim, or like twigs from a vine. Sounds like sprouts. What do they call them? Bean sprouts. It's going to be the same satisfying. So Amalei Abaya says, Timul Rabbana the Bachim Yasvadaita, but Batzim Yathalim Yasvadaita. Me Basasham Tiv a little bit upon important. Similar to the way we explained by Yod Melech HaBashan, that there's a threshold. What happens is, yeah, it's going to be satisfying. Question is how much? Less than that is nothing. More than that depends more than the size of a date, depends what type of food. If it's meat, then it will be very satisfying. If it's sprouts of some sort, then it will be less satisfying. But the satisfaction is only once you have the basic measurement of the size of the date. Maskevla Rava says, Rava has a question. Whenever it says eating, so we always said that eating meant the kazayas, the size of an olive. How much time can you eat that in that it's going to be considered that you ate it? So we said kadei achilas pras, which is the amount of time it would take to eat a half a loaf of bread. Pras means a half. Now, how much is that? Let's say it's 4 minutes. So you have to eat a kazayas, this olive size within 4 minutes. Otherwise, it's not considered that you ate it. It gets divided up and you only ate a half the time, even though you finished it, but it wasn't in the time.
You can't double up. Can you not double up the meals? You have to take in the morning, you have to do in the afternoon.
Then that would mean that you didn't really eat a full day. That's what we're saying.
Or like every 4 minutes you have like
something like that. You're not allowed to. So machlekes, it would be a machlekes for Rabbi Yochanan or Shalkish if that's a biblical prohibition. That's a rabbinic prohibition. But there's definitely no punishment. Question that Rav is asking is that why does the time, the ratio of food to time, why does it not increase when the food increases? So kazayas was b'fdechilas pras, and a kesebes, which is more than a kazayas, said it could be more than an egg, which we said was right. Kesebes agasab was possibly more than an egg. So that should be double, at least double kazayas. Why is the time ratio the same thing? Kedechilas pras. Kesebes b'fdechilas pras. We're getting the same answer again and again. The sages said that this is the threshold, that if someone eats within this time frame, then that's satisfying. If he stretches it out, then it's nothing. Yeah, the only thing that I can compare to this in my just an example. Sometimes you give them a shalach money, so you can't give him change nowadays. It used to be you can give change. You can't give change. You can give $1. Now there's different types of mishalachim. There's a guy that's by the door, You know, it needs a few dollars to get through the day. You know, one of those. And then you have a Mashiach that flew from Eretz Yisrael to collect him some, big thing. So for him, to this, you could give him $1, but it's not really what he needs. He needs $1,000. So, but you gave the $1. This guy gets satisfied, and this guy, okay, it's not satisfying very much, but you gave him less than that. You can't give, right? So that's what we're saying over here also. That it has to be the size of a date. Now, for one guy it satisfies a little bit, one guy it's a lot. There's like a threshold that once it's in that threshold, then good. Okay. Maskif la Rava. Rava has a question. Kesebes b'chtechilas pras. Chatzi pras b'chtechilas pras. Okay, this is a question all the way. There's a rabbinic rule that if someone eats food that's tamei, then he becomes tamei. Now, usually food doesn't make a person tamei. What makes a person tamei is a sheretz, a corpse, something more serious. Food that became tamei doesn't really make anything else tamei. Now, but if someone eats a certain amount of food that's tamei, then he's not supposed to eat truma. It goes to the mikvah. So, how much is that food? So we said that food is a chatzi pras, a half of a half. It says that it's two egg sizes. A loaf of bread would be eight eggs. Like this, Rashi in the Rambam or something. But a half a loaf would be 4, and a half of a half is 2. So the amount of time that it takes to eat this is also kedei achilas pras. It also has to be during this time frame he's eating food that became tamei. Why is this the measurement? Why is the ratio to time the same as what would be for the date and for the olive? That was a ratio of eating. But here you're eating more than that, and still you're making the time frame the same ratio. You have to really gobble it up like very quickly to be able to. Well, you're not to be able to, because you're not trying to do this, but for this to take effect. Leave that alone. That's a rabbinic law. It's a rabbinic law. It's not a biblical law. And so therefore, we're going to be very lenient. We're going to say that unless you eat it very quickly, it's not going to count. The Gemara says, okay. Does Rav Papa really say this? We have a pasuk that says, "Don't become contaminated, and don't become contaminated by them and become contaminated." So, and this extra verse tells me that when a person eats impure food, he becomes tamei. That's biblical. The Gemara says, no, it's not. It really means that it's rabbinic and it's just a pasuk that helps me support that, which the Gemara does often. It gives me supports from psukim, sort of like to memorize laws. The psukim that are used as an asmachta are the pasuk that's being used is because people knew psukim well, so they would associate it with the pasuk. It's sort of like tying you tie something on your finger and to remember. It's the pasuk is there to help you remember that there's a law, but it's not really the pasuk that's teaching you that law. That's a smachta. At least that's one of the pshatim in a smachta. Smachta is a support. Okay, Kol Eichlin. We said all food combined to the shear of a kukis, and all drink would combine to the shear, to the measurement of a tikva. where it says what is considered food. Amar papachal umtza umilcha mitzdaref. If someone eats meat with salt, so it will combine. Now, even though salt alone would not be considered food, but that's how people eat it. So they eat salt on their meat, right? It all combines. Amar Shlakish says, "Tzir shal gabi yerek mitzdarf l'kikeseves b'yom Kippur." If you have a vegetable with some dressing on it, so is the dressing considered a drink, or is the dressing considered food? Tzir is a gravy. So it says, Rish Lakish says that it's considered food, and therefore it will combine to the date size. Where it says pshita, that's obvious. No, it's not so obvious. I don't know what the Gemara's question and answer is. It's not so obvious. I could have thought that it's a drink. Everything that comes along with food is considered food. All of these condiments, relish, toppings. Okay. Rish Lakish tells us another halacha. Remember, might have been one of my first Yom Kippurs. I was so nervous. I ate before Yom Kippur. I ate like more and more and more. I felt before Yom Kippur like I was going to throw up. So now I learned that you just have a normal meal, and that's usually the best. But I guess from the fear of like, how am I going to survive tomorrow night? So if someone overeats, achila gasa, and he overeats Erev Yom Kippur. Well, he eats a full meal on Erev Yom Kippur. By the time Yom Kippur comes in, he's still eating, and by now it's considered overeating. So he's pater. Now, the truth is, he ate on Yom Kippur, but that eating was not considered eating. That was, my time. It says, if you're not afflicted, you're supposed to be afflicted on Yom Kippur. And here, he wasn't satisfying himself. It was the opposite. Prat Lamazik, he was damaging himself. Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rish Lakish, Rabbi Yirmiyah says the name of Rish Lakish, Zar Shachal Truma, Achila Gas Mishal Masakern, Bein Mishal Masachem. Truma is food that goes to the Kayan. It's grain that a landowner would give 2 out of 100. It's a percent. And a non-Kayan is not allowed to eat it. If a non-Kayan eats it, even if it's given to him, he's not allowed to eat it. Then he has to pay for it, and he also has to pay an extra tip if he eats it. So if he overeats stuff, so he probably ate something else and he's eating this for dessert. So he's overeating the truma. Yeah. So the rule would be that he doesn't have to pay the extra tip. Why? Because he's kiyoichal. It says if he eats prat lamazik, but this is damaging, he doesn't have to pay the extra tip if he destroys it. He would have to pay whatever he took, but whatever he damaged. But it's only if he eats it, he has to. And this wasn't considered really eating. I don't know. You feel sick.
Because like eating into Kippur, and like at what point, like you could be happy with your meal at the end of your meal, you're in Kippur, but you're overeating, but like before that, you still have Kippur.
Yeah. So I. So it could be that he ate a date size and he's still becoming full. And then he eats another date size after he's full. So the first date size he would be higher for, and the second one he won't be. Yeah. Rabbi Yirmiyah says the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Before it was Rabbi Yirmiyah, the name of Rish Lakish. Before it was just Rish Lakish. We had 2 statements from Rish Lakish. The term kaisis means to chew, but it means that it's used for anything that's not really edible. He's eating barley, maybe it's cooked or it's not prepared for food yet. So barley in general is an animal food, but this wasn't prepared at all. So he's chewing it, and it's truma. So he has to pay the keren, but he doesn't have to pay the chaimish. He doesn't have to pay the keren, means the principal money. He doesn't have to pay the fifth. Ki yoichal prat lamazik. This is not considered eating. It's considered damaging. Amar Rav Shizvi, Amar Rav Yechanan. Rav Shizvi says the name of Rav Yechanan. Zor shepalash shizafin shal truma. I think this is prunes. Rashi says shizafin, prunes. You see that in the Rashi. In the translation, it said plums, but I like the way Rashi's.
Prune in French is plum.
Oh. Okay, I was thinking in English. I didn't know you speak French. Where's that from? From
High school. Yeah.
Okay, but your French teacher's probably proud of you. So, if he eats plum, bala means he swallowed a plum. Okay, that's why I wanted to say it was a prune. The hikion, and then he spit it back up. So yeah, this is not very appetizing. And another person comes along and eats it. Yeah, someone was desperate. So the first person ate it. The first person, it was truma. Must be truma derabanan. How is it truma if it's a plum? Truma, I thought, was only on the grain and the wine and oil. Yeah, it gets worse if you look at Rabbeinu Hananel. Rabbeinu Hananel learns that it's not the hikion that he spit it out, but it came out through the hole, it went through the system, and then someone else comes and eats it. So, Rishon, Mishalim, Karen L'chaimish, the first one ate it, he has to pay the regular, plus the fifth. And Sheni, Ein Mishalim, Ela Demei Eitzim L'Rishon Bavad, the second one doesn't have to pay the fifth. He has to pay the first person what he took from him, but it's not really food at this point. It's just considered like wood, like something that it could use to start a fire or something. It's dry. So it's really just he just has to pay for it like fuel of some sort. Right? It's not considered eating. Okay. No, he's like a bird. Okay. The food and the drink don't combine. Right? The food has the one measurement, and drink has another measurement, and that doesn't combine together. Mantan, who holds? In other words, if someone eats half a date and half a cheekful, he drinks half a cheekful. It doesn't combine to be a full cheekful, or it doesn't combine to be a full date. It's actually machlekes, but this would be the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua. The Tanana was taught in the Mishnah. Klal Amar Rabbi Yeshua gave a rule. Kol she'tamasiv v'shiri shavim mitzdarif. Tamasiv v'leishiri, shir v'leitamasiv, leitamasiv v'leishiri mitzdarif. It works like this. There's different types of tumah, impurity. There's tumah that comes from a corpse. That would make a person tummy for 7 days. Now, how much of the corpse? There's a piece of the corpse. It would be a kazayas menames. Then there's, let's say, a nevela, a dead animal. That would also be a kazayas, but he would only be tummy for 1 day. He would go to the mikveh and then he's pure. Then there's a sheretz. A sheretz gives off tumah. It's just for 1 day, but it's kadasha, the size of the lentil, so it's much smaller. So Rabbi Yeshua said like this: if the tumah is the same, how would the tumah be the same? Well, it could be a nevela and a sheret. It's both tumah for 1 day. Or it could be a half a zayas from a corpse and another half a zayas from a corpse. That's also the same. V'shiyuri shava, and the measurement is the same. That would have to be the 2 half days of the corpse, because once you come to the sheret, then you have a different measurement. So same tuma, same measurement, mitzdaref, that will combine. 2 half kazesim from 2 different corpses will combine to give tuma. Tumasa right? If the tuma is the same but not the measurement. For example, the sheretz and the nevela, they have a different measurement. One is a kazayas and one is a lentil, but the tuma is only for 1 day. So, or shiurei v'lei tumasi, or the measurement is the same but not the tuma. That would be a corpse and a dead animal. They have the same measurement. It's both a kazayas, but one makes a person tummy for 7, one makes a person tummy for 1. V'lei tumasi v'lei shiurei. This would be the corpse and the sheret. One is 7 days in a kazayas, one is 1 day and a lentil. So all of those are mitzvah. Because you got to get them both right to be mitzvah. Both the size and the quality and quantity. Rav Nachman says the truth is it could even follow the other opinion that says that things do combine, and here it's not going to combine. Why? Nachman says, look, over there it combines because we don't look at the individual aspect, and we just say, oh well, it's all tame, so we'll throw it together. We'll go for the more lenient, for the larger shear, and for the smaller tame. A little bit of a corpse together with the sheretz would combine to be the sheretz, not to be the corpse. Right? The larger one would help the smaller one. However, over here, we're not going to say that food and drink are going to combine, even according to the rabbis that say that it does over there, because over here we're going to say that it doesn't satisfy a person. A little bit of food, a half a cracker, and a little bit of drink, half a shot glass. It's not enough. I mean, either a whole cracker or a whole shot glass of drink, right, amounts would be satisfying. This is nothing. Okay. This is what you give me. The person's going to say, the half a cracker. So, well, I gave you a little bit of this. So this is what you give me also. Okay. Rish Lakish also says, the Gemara doesn't go through the whole thing. It just says, etc., which because we said it before. Before we said it was Rav Chisda that said it. Now we're just saying Rish Lakish is saying it. Rabbi Yechanan responds, before it was Rav Nachman responding to Rav Chisda. Here it's Rish Lakish, Rabbi Yechanan responding to Rish Lakish. Afil Tamer Rabbanan really could be the Rabbanan, and who say that things do combine. But that was only regarding impurity, where we say all impurity is one. Here we're looking to relax his mind from his hunger. And a half of this and a half of that isn't gonna relax him. Okay, we have a new Mishnah. So one eats and he drinks, and he forgot that it was Yom Kippur, and he didn't remember in between. So we had food and drink in one forgetting of it being Yom Kippur. So that's also possible. He didn't know that you're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur, and he didn't learn about it in the middle. But I think it would be easier to say, what, today was Yom Kippur? He wakes up in the morning and he puts the coffee, whatever, and he has food and drink. So in Chayv al-Achat, it was all b'shegig. He didn't know. So one sin off. Achal v'shasa. Achal v'asa malacha. However, because even what we mean to say by the food and drink was that even though they don't combine, but it's under the same prohibition of affliction. So it will combine to be one chatas. It won't combine in the measurement. However, if someone eats and he does work, push the button on the coffee maker. That's work. That's malacha. Because it heats up. Right? It's the fire. So then he's chayav chatois, shnei chatois. It's chayav two. Those are two different prohibitions. Work on Yom Kippur and eating on Yom Kippur. Says that he's exempt if he eats things that aren't really edible, or he drinks things that aren't drinkable. So then he's exempt. If he drinks, these are types of brines from fish or something. If he drinks them, he's exempt. It's not eating alone. No, it's not talking about forgetting that Yom Kippur. Well, he is forgetting that it's Yom Kippur because we're discussing Machatas. He's doing it for Shegeg, but it wouldn't matter. Tzir is also a type of brine. Yeah. Tzir is used in meat that was salted. The juices are running out. Warriors is used as like a fish brine. Does it describe over there the difference between Tzir and Warriors? Okay. Rish Lakish has this comment. Very difficult. His comment is like this question. Why doesn't Torah tell us a warning? And when it says warning, why doesn't it tell us a prohibition to afflict the soul? No, the truth is it does. But it says Vinisim. But that's a positive command. Why doesn't it give us the negative command? Thou shalt not something. There's no negative command. So it says Mishum D'Layefsher, because it's impossible. What do you want it to say? What should it say? Nichtav Rahman Allah. Well, let's say it says don't eat. Achilu b'kazayas. Then it's going to change the halacha. Eating is a kazayas, and on Yom Kippur the prohibition isn't a kazayas. The prohibition is a date. We can't use that term. So it says Nichtav Rahman Allah. Let it say, don't be afflicted. Well, that's a problem. Kumachol mashma. That sounds like you're supposed to eat. Maskefla Rabbi says, what's the problem? Mr. Rahmani Shamar Pen Leisuna. Rabbi says, let it say, guard, lest you become not afflicted. All right. So beware lest you become not afflicted, which would mean don't eat. So imkain nefisha lulavi. That's the problem because that expression would give us two prohibitions. Ishamar Pen. Beware lest, and those are considered as two different words of prohibition, and we're only looking for one. Maskefla Rabibi Barabaya is a question. He says, beware for the commandment of affliction. Gemara says that's not going to work because in Kenny Shamer de Lav Lav Hishamer da Say. The word Hishamer is usually used as a negative prohibition. Beware. That means don't do something. That's what category does it go under? Positive or negative? The Gemara says, well, it depends. If it's beware to do something positive, then it's a positive. You're looking for a negative command. So if it says Hishamer b'mitzvahs inoi, beware for the positive mitzvah of affliction, then you're back to the same place where we started with. Maskevla Ravashi. Rashi says, Nichtev al tasr minahina. Do not stray from the affliction. So the Gemara says, Kasha, yeah, that could have worked. Tana Maisla Mehacha. We know it from the following. We know that there's a prohibition here. Now, this is all based on the rule that Ein Einshin Melon King Masir. The Torah tells me that there's a punishment for someone that eats on Yom Kippur. That's Karas. The problem is that we have a rule that we don't give punishments unless we told them not to. We never start off with just a punishment. It has to say, don't. And then it follows up with the punishment. So where is the punishment written? Where is the negative prohibition written? It says the positive. Where's the negative prohibition that's supposed to incur these sort of punishments, which would be malchus, and negative prohibitions have this own category of malchus or kares or chatas, which is what Yom Kippur goes under that category. The Tana gets it from here. Now we quote a nice long brisa. Okay, it's going to take us down towards the end of the page. So now right away on the side, there's already a comment. There's a shas in the brackets. Ishaya pick. It's Ishaya Berlin. It says it's actually supposed to be a different pasuk. Instead of the Nisim Esnaf Sheseichem, it's supposed to kind of, okay, whatever. So we have a pasuk that says you should afflict your soul and don't do work. Yachal yeyanish kares, what's the base? Yachal yeyanish kares al tisefes malacha. Maybe there should be kares on doing work. You see, what happens is Yom Kippur, the day of Yom Kippur is 24 hours. Plus, it starts at nightfall and ends at 3 stars, 24 and a half hours. However, there is a mitzvah to add on to Yom Kippur a little bit, a few minutes. It's called Tesefes Yom Kippur. To add, we'll see on the next page a little bit more about that. A few minutes you're supposed to add. Now, maybe if someone doesn't add, he should get, and he does work, he should get kares on the extra time because he did work in that, he didn't add. So, any soul that does work on the essence of this day, it's only the essence of the day, not on this addition. You're supposed to add, but there's no punishment for not. Now, when they're adding to Yom Kippur, the extra, you're supposed to start it a little early and end it a little late. So there's two parts to that. There's not doing work and there's also fasting. So we said that there's no kares for doing work. What about kares for not fasting? He ate till the last minute. So it's on the essence of this day. If a person eats, he doesn't afflict himself that he gets cut off. The added time to Yom Kippur doesn't incur kares, not for the work and not for the fasting. Maybe there's still a prohibition, which would mean that he would get malchus, not kares, but there's still a negative prohibition. It sounds like right now it's only a positive command. It's not a negative command. There is no lashes if someone does work on the added time to Yom Kippur. Maybe there's a negative prohibition for the added time to Yom Kippur for fasting. That if someone doesn't fast, then he eats all the way up to then that he gets lashes. Vidinu. No, the Gemara says vidinu. No, there's no negative prohibition here. It's just a positive command that you're supposed to have. How do we see? In other words, it doesn't say here that it could have resolved this in a second, but it doesn't say that. So what we need to do is we need to have some logical proof. Work is something that we find in other places as well. But nevertheless, when it comes to Yom Kippur, we don't have a negative command that you have to add to Yom Kippur. So, Inoi, when it comes to this affliction, which is never anywhere, we don't have this anywhere else. So of course there's no negative prohibition. If on work, which is much more common, more prevalent, that it's prohibited, and nevertheless we find that it's not such a big deal. So for affliction, which is not as common, it's probably not such a big deal. Also, it doesn't have the negative prohibition. But where is the real warning that says, do not afflict, which means don't eat. Minayin, where's that from? Well, we know that it says anyone that does gets kares, but it didn't say do not. It just says afflict, which is a positive. It doesn't say the negative. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to say that it says an extra verse somewhere else. Because it's not necessary there, we'll just say that that's referring to this. We'll apply it to this. We don't need the punishment by doing work on Yom Kippur. That's how we start off. The Gomer Me'inai, because it says a punishment by not fasting, and I could have understood that someone that does work would be the same. How would that work? Fasting, it doesn't apply to Shabbos and Yom Tov. On Shabbos and Yom Tov, I'm supposed to eat, not fast. But nevertheless, if someone does, nevertheless, someone does work on Shabbos and Yom Tov, that's not allowed. Let me do this again. Fasting, that doesn't apply to Shabbos and Yom Tov. But nevertheless, on Yom Kippur is kares. So work, which does apply to Shabbos and Yom Tov, for sure should be kares on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur has even extra laws. So for sure, the basic laws it has. So lama nemar. So why does it have to say that there's kares for doing work? We could have understood that naturally if there's kares for not fasting. It says mufna. It's extra. And lahakish v'lagim and a gzeir shava. It's coming to teach me a gzeir shava. Just like it has a punishment by fasting, not fasting, it's kares, and there's a punishment by not working. Punishment for working on Yom Kippur, which is kares. Just like by work, it says do not do work. Kol malacha leisasu. It says do not. Then there has to be a prohibition there, even though it doesn't say it clearly in the Torah, but we would understand it from the fact that it has an extra verse by malacha, where it says you can't learn from malacha. Why? You're saying that malacha is for sure a punishment. Why? Because malacha is by all other holidays and Shabbos as well. And so if there's a punishment for fasting, for not fasting on Yom Kippur, it doesn't need to tell me that there's a punishment for malacha. And so therefore, why did it say the punishment for malacha? To teach me something extra, that there's a prohibition that you're not allowed to eat. But the truth is, it's not so. Why? Because malacha, you're making it look like malacha is so strict. They have it everywhere. For sure, there's a punishment. It's not true. Malacha is sometimes allowed. There's cases where malacha is permissible, and there's no cases that fasting is permissible. It goes like this. There's never an exception. You always have to fast, except in a matter of life and death. But you always have to fast. But by work, in the Beis Hamikdash, you're allowed to bring karbanos. You're allowed to do work. See, there are cases where malacha becomes permitted. So it needs to tell me that there's a punishment by malacha. Yeah, well, that's a good question. Right. Yeah. But when it comes to making a kalvayman, I would still use it. Ella, so the Gemara says, okay, let's do this different. Ella lo yaimar oynesh be'inoi the gamer memalacha. Say it the other way. Why does it have to give me a punishment by not fasting if there's a punishment by work? Kares, working on Yom Kippur. Then I would understand naturally that there's a punishment for someone that eats on Yom Kippur. How does it work? Ma malacha kares. Look, malacha is not so strict. Every once in a while in the Beis Hamikdash, it becomes permissible, right? You're allowed to do work. You're allowed to slaughter an animal for the sacrifice. But nevertheless, someone that does it when it's not allowed is kares. So inoi, when it comes to fasting, there's never an exception. In the Beis Hamikdash, everyone has to fast also. Like Kolshkin, for sure there should be a punishment. If by malacha there's a punishment. So it says laman emer, so why does it say it? It's a mufna, it's extra. Lahakish v'ladim men gzeir shava, it's coming to teach me the gzeir shava, a verbal analogy, nemer anish b'inav nemer anish b'malacha. It's coming to tell me that just like there's a punishment by ine, which is fasting, and there's a punishment by work. Ma malacha anish v'hizir, just like by the work, there was a prohibition, negative prohibition as well. Also by fasting, there has to be a negative prohibition as well. You're making this comparison by saying that if malacha has a punishment, so it ends up with the warning. But going back to the origin of it, if malacha has a punishment, then for sure fasting has a punishment. Not so. Malacha has a punishment because malacha is the basis of all the other holidays, so it's much stricter. But fasting is just this rare instance where on Yom Kippur you have to fast. It doesn't tell me that automatically there's a punishment. There's a punishment by work. There's a punishment by not fasting. Okay, so Amar Ravina says, Hi Tana Etzem Etzem Gomer. Ravina says that we learn a Gzeira Shava not because something is not because punishments are extra, not because of that. It has to do with the word, the essence of the day. It says the essence of the day by work. It says the essence of the day by inai, by fasting, and those are extra. Gomer Mufna. That's how it learns. Etzem Etzem Gomer Kama. Mufna, and those are extra. They have to be extra because otherwise, if it's an extra word, then I can learn from it even if there's a question on it. If it's not extra, then I would say, well, 1 second, how can you make an analogy there? This one is stronger than that one. To which side is it extra? Umar says, look, that's in Michte. Chamisha Krai Ksivi. 5 times it says, it says about the work 5 times. Chadla Azhara says not to do work in 5 different places in the Torah. One is telling me the negative prohibition, the Yomama. Chadla Azhara Delilah, negative prohibition by day, don't work by day. Another one's telling me don't do work by night. Why you have to divide it up is a question. Chadla Einish the Yomama. One is telling me that there's a punishment by day if you do work. One is telling me there's a punishment, karis, if it works on Yom Kippur by night. And one is extra, just to teach me that there's a negative prohibition that a person is not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur by day or by night. It says over here, afflict. And it says over there, when someone rapes a girl, it says he afflicted her. Just like over there, it says he's not allowed to live with the married woman. It's a married woman. It's a Nara Marasa, girl that betrothed. So there was a warning. Afkan Layana Shalom Kines are also over here. We're learning from Inoi, a flick, that also over here there had to be a warning, which means that there is a warning, that the Torah tells us not to do it. We'll learn from Shabbos. Over here it says Shabbos, and by Shabbos it says Shabbos. Shabbosin. Over there it says don't do work. And over here it says that there's a punishment for affliction, and it has to tell so it doesn't fast. It's coming to tell me that there's a negative prohibition where you're not allowed to eat. Rav Papa says you guys are getting so complicated. It says he gufa Shabbos Ikri. It's called Shabbos. So once it's called Shabbos, so automatically I'll make it like Shabbos that has the rules of the do nots and the punishments. Tishbisu Shabbatchem. So it means you should rest. Okay. Rav Papa that says that Yom Kippur is called Shabbos. He doesn't say like Rav Acha Bar Yaakov that learns a Gzeira Shava. I don't have to learn one thing from another thing if it says it right here. This is called Shabbos. Why doesn't he just say that this is called Shabbos? He needs it for what it says in the Brisa. It says, can I go a little further? No, I'm going over time. Says that you should afflict your soul on the 9th of the month. Now that's a very strange pasuk because Yom Kippur is on the 10th of the month, not on the 9th. Does that mean that a person should fast on the 9th of the month? It means it says in the evening. Then maybe that means only after it gets dark. It says no on the 9th. Okay, so how do you do this? This is which way is this going? It says you have to start the fast on the 9th. That's the mitzvah of Tzefes Yom Kippur. You have to add the Yom Kippur by starting it before it actually comes in. That's only when it's coming in. How do you know they have to extend it a little bit longer? It goes from evening to evening. I only know Yom Kippur. Over here it says Yom Tovim. supposed to be. Shabbos is minayin. How do you know Shabbos? I'm lemetishbesu. Ainly ella Shabbos is yom tov minayin. I'm adjusting it according to the comments on the side. How do you know that you're supposed to add to Shabbos as well? You're supposed to add to Yom Tov. Place for Shabbos. Place for Yom Tov. Haketzad. How is this? Kamakim shnemar Shavuos. Meisifin michal ala kodesh. Anytime where it says that expression of resting, you have to add a little bit. The one that already knew that you had to add, because he says, Betisha, it says be'et me'etzem, he learned the Gzeir Shava that says that you have to add. So, what does he do with this? V'nisem es nafshi seichem, Betisha l'chaydesh. What does he do with this pasuk? He knows already. Mibai leilek the Tani Rab Chia Barav midifti, the Tani Chia Barav midifti. The Tani Rav Chia Barav midifti, because it was taught in a brisa. V'nisem es nafshi seichem Betisha. You should afflict yourself on the 9th. The Betisha mesanin. Do you afflict yourself on the 9th? Alay basim mesanin. You fast on the 10th. Elalay malach. It's coming to tell you. Kalaychol v'sheisa b'tshi. Anyone that eats and drinks on the 9th, on Erev Yom Kippur, Mala lavakasav. The Torah considers it kilu esanat shi v'asir. It's as if he fasted for 2 days. On the 9th and the 10th. Then when he actually fasts on the 10th, then he gets the 3-day fast, which is special. Okay, let's leave it over here. Shekayach everyone. We have to see him next week, Thursday.